Good evening. It's great to see you all. This is one of the great nights of the year here in our city, where we get to lift up and celebrate some amazing neighbors. Some of the folks we celebrate here tonight as we induct them into the Columbus Hall of Fame is a way for us to acknowledge how extraordinary their leadership, their contributions, their service has been, and why it makes our city such a special place. Come on in, folks, come on in. I know the rain had some folks delayed and a little slower transit here this evening. I want to thank the Fran Ryan Center and Rec and Parks, and to the friends and family of the recipients. I want to thank you all for being here tonight and give a warm welcome to our inductees, their families and friends. It is events like this that remind me what makes Columbus so special, the people of this great city. Columbus Hall of Fame honors outstanding individuals who, through exemplary accomplishments, have gained recognition for themselves and have brought great honor and credit to this city. We have honorees in just about every professional field, from fine arts to football to faith. Past recipients include Amina Robinson, one of this country's most prolific artists, and Ohio State football great and Heisman Trophy winner Howard Hopalong Cassidy, and of course the great Fran Ryan as well. In all, there are 85 people in the Columbus Hall of Fame. After our ceremony today, there will be 90. This beautiful experiment, just over 200 years old, that all started in the original neighborhood of Franklinton. It's a pretty elite company, pretty elite group. And you'll meet today some other great inductees. Today's inductees into the City of Columbus Hall of Fame are the late Judge William H. Brooks, Barbara Fergus, the late Clarence Lumpkin, former state senator, judge, and city attorney Richard C. Pfeiffer, Jr., and the late Dr. Wilburn H. Weddington, Sr. Our first inductee is the late Judge William Brooks. When I was reading a little bit, I knew about the Brooks family and knew of all the contributions, but when I was reading all of the firsts, I mean all of the glass ceilings, all the pioneering that Judge Brooks did, I was just amazed and so impressed. And very fortunate tonight, in addition to being able to induct him, is to have somebody so special in this community, an incredible leader and beacon of light in our community, Judge Guy Reese, to come do the honors. Please welcome Judge Reese.
OH! Judge Brooks would appreciate that. I understand he was a strong Buckeye. He was born in Columbus in 1912, but 1912 really does not give us the true focus of that man, because I think he was a man for all seasons. He was courageous, he had perseverance, he was unyielding in his dedication and commitment. His fight for desegregation alone should make him a beacon for everyone here in this room. You know, I think about, we think about desegregation and the fights that we've had, and then we look at where we are today, and we can say we need a man of all seasons like William H. Brooks Sr. He was born in 1912, attended East High School. He's a graduate of the Ohio State University College of Law in 1937, one of two in that class, two African Americans. He established his practice on High Street. But that really does not give us the true picture of this man. He was a leader in the community. He was active in a number of organizations. And when we speak of him, and we think of where we are today, I think we need to look at the things that he's accomplished. Not only here in the city of Columbus, when we look at the city, he was on the mayor's staff. He was one of those that was a primary staff member for the mayor of the city of Columbus. When we look at the county, he was the first African-American judge on municipal court. We think about the state, where he served on the PUCO. And nationally, I was really impressed in looking at what he did. He was drafted into the Army as a lawyer, and he attempted to become a staff judge advocate, which means that he was trying to go from private to an officer in the U.S. Army in 1944. So when we talk about Tuskegee Airmen, he was a Tuskegee Airman for us because he was striving to become what he should have been automatically. He had to work to do that. When we think of nationally, this was impressive for me. Brian shared with me a letter that he received, a letter from the White House, signed by Lyndon Baines Johnson. When we start talking about national ability, all would have been in vain if we permit complacency or apathy to spoil the landslide for which we have worked so hard. Our charts and maps make it plain where your constituents tend to be concentrated, and we're looking directly to you to ensure a massive turnout on November the 3rd. And that's signed by Lyndon Baines Johnson, dated October 22nd, 1964. When we look at William H. Brooks, we can say he contributed to the city, he contributed to the county, he contributed to our state, he contributed to the nation. When we look at him, what can we say we've done to match what he's done? We owe him a debt of gratitude for his service and his commitment. While we may be inducting him into the City Hall of Fame, what have we done when we look in the mirror? What have we done? We owe him a debt of gratitude, and we owe him our own contributions to make our city, our county, our state, and this nation what it should be. With that, Brian, thank you for asking me to do this. I learned a lot about it.
Judge Reese, I thought that was fantastic. And to Brian and the Brooks family, we celebrate and honor and induct the late, great Judge Brooks into the Columbus Hall of Fame. Congratulations.
OH. That was for him too. So I would be remiss without saying thank you, Judge Reese, for answering the call when I made the call. Thank you, Mayor Ginther, for making the call to me. Whether you knew William H. Brooks as Attorney Brooks, Judge Brooks, Director Brooks, Commissioner Brooks, Bill, or just Uncle Bill, he was a Buckeye at heart. He loved this city. I think about all the jobs, and my cousins and I always talk about this, all the jobs he did in his lifetime. When Mayor Sensenbrenner called, I need you to do this, I'll be there. When Governor Celeste called, I need you to do this, I'll be there. And I just think about how he always showed up. And that's one thing that's resonated in me and my family and loved ones, is that how he showed up for this city, he showed up for everybody. So this is just a great honor, and he would just love this. So thank you very much.
The one thing you didn't mention is that he showed up for you and your brother.
Yes.
He was a true dad.
Oh, yeah.
He was a true dad, not a father.
Right.
He was a dad.
He kept those stats at the basketball game and everything else.
I turned 50 in April, and when I read Judge Brooks' bio, I feel like a slacker. I feel like I've got a lot more to do in the next couple of decades ahead. An incredible neighbor, and so glad to celebrate him. So our next inductee is a trailblazer in her own right, one of the most celebrated change makers of our time. Barbara Fergus. Just a couple highlights, because I'm going to have our great city auditor come up and share a few words about Barbara, because she's the one that nominated her to be inducted into the Hall of Fame. Barbara co-founded Midwestern Auto Group, helping establish it as the world's largest collection of European luxury automobiles. She was a founding member of the Women's Fund of Central Ohio. She was recognized by the International Women's Forum as a woman who makes a difference, and honored for her philanthropic leadership alongside some of the most celebrated change makers of our time. Here to tell us a little bit more about Barbara is her good friend and our city auditor. Please welcome Megan Kilgore.
First of all, it is a great joy to be here. And I want to give the mayor a special thank you, because when we were, I was delighted to learn that you had put her into this incredible honor. But serendipitously, the timing happens to line up beautifully with something very special yesterday. And that is her birthday. Now, I am terrified of her, and so I'm not going to tell you the age. But if you want to think back as to the special number of how many individuals have now been inducted into the Columbus Hall of Fame, there might be a coincidence, okay? So, Barbara, tonight we are here because of you. And to be very frank, this is a very special evening for me, because you are a second mother to me. And so I am absolutely delighted to share with you a little perspective, because Barbara is many things. She is a pioneering business leader. She is a cultural champion. She is a fierce advocate for women and girls. But more than that, she is a person who I call for advice when I need guidance, when I need perspective. And many of you in this room have heard those, words that she often says when you sometimes need to hear it. Megan, what are you thinking? Barbara, you have ignited movements for gender equity, for education, for the arts. You have funded dreams. You have brought world-class ideas and world-class music and voices to our great city. And you have helped shape Columbus into something brighter, bolder, and certainly more just. Barbara has spent her entire life building things that last. Businesses, absolutely, but even more powerful than what she's built is how she has done it. And that is with a steady, absolutely steady, powerful belief in people, especially in women. She has mentored hundreds around this globe, elected officials like myself, gold medalists like Katie Smith, world-class leaders all across this beautiful earth. And to everyone, she does something that I think is really, really special. She opens the door, she gives a little bit of insight, and then she kind of gives you that look that only Barbara can give, and it says, go on, it's time, move forward. And, you know, to give you kind of a story that perhaps is the most quintessential story to illustrate Barbara, as I often do, I'll go up and have lunch with her. And as you all know, she has an incredible collection of cars. You can't be a race car driver and own a world-renowned car dealership without always having a pretty spectacular car in your driveway. So I get up there one day and we're gonna go to lunch, and I see this gorgeous car in her driveway, and I say to her, Barbara, do you care if I drive? And she kind of looks at me and she's like, yeah, fine, go ahead. And so I get into the driver's seat, which is kind of like a cockpit, it's a gorgeous car, and she slides into the passenger seat, and I start to back out of her driveway, and I'm looking down, and the gear shift is this translucent, basically futuristic knob, right? I don't see a reverse anywhere. I'm looking around, I don't see a button, I don't see anything. And I'm kind of trying to play it off for a second, fake confidence, you know, and eventually I look at her and I'm like, Fergus, where is the reverse? And she looks at me, and she has those beautiful sunglasses on, she's looking straight ahead, and she looks at me. She lowers her sunglasses and she looks at the gear shift, and she looks back at me and says, Megan, I do not know, I only go forward. And for everyone who knows Barbara knows that to be so true. She is always moving forward. She is always moving ahead. She is always thinking about what she can do to drive toward that next bigger, better, bolder vision. Barbara believes in a few things. She believes in people who work hard, and she expects excellence, not perfection, but purpose. And Barbara knows that real leadership is not always loud, but it's steady, it's intentional, and it's very generous. So Barbara, tonight, for your brilliant mind, your tireless, tireless mentorship of literally every woman in this room, and your indelible impact on the city, thank you. You have absolutely shown us that elegance and boldness are not opposites. They are quintessentially you. They are your signature package. And tonight, it is my greatest honor to congratulate you as the newest member into our Columbus Hall of Fame.
I'm here today because the mayor and the auditor had a conversation. Thank you both for your confidence and recognition of my journey. However, lesson learned, if you want to stay out of the limelight like I do, be careful who you share your information with. As we look back at the history of our country, two of our greatest achievements have been the First Amendment and our universities. The First Amendment is front and center as the world looks for some sort of freedom. And here in our country, we've been awakened to the fear for our democracy. Then there are our universities. Years ago, many small colleges got together and created our universities. Through the research and size of them, they have helped formulate and advance our world and help us see beyond the present realities. Unknowingly, in '53, a committed mission started when I stepped foot on the Oval at OSU. Finance and government became my passion, and it lasted, as passion for most of us does last. Philanthropy is a passion with a purpose, and backed with the ingredients of intensity and drama, change does happen. One small example, decades ago, when Drake was at the helm at OSU, I had engaged in my lecture series a woman, Hershey Ali, who was from Somalia. She left her country, went to the Netherlands, ended up in Parliament, and then came to the United States and is a professor at Harvard. All that time teaching women to lead. Unfortunately, that event was canceled because powers that be thought there might be picketing. Just remember, this was back in 1915 and 16. So, since they feared the picketing might happen, I need to change gears, and I hired Irshad Manji, who was a woman I knew. She was Iranian and Egyptian, from the International Women's Forum, of which I'm a part. It's an organization of professional women that's worldwide. Irshad spoke about women's leadership, she spoke about courage, and she spoke about risk. And she brought down the house. That's passion with a purpose. Thank you.
Our next inductee is the late Clarence Lumpkin, who was also known as the mayor of South Linden. One of my favorite stories former Mayor Coleman would tell is anytime he was in the Linden neighborhood, folks driving by or on the street would holler out, "Hey, Mayor!" And they both turned around. Even Coleman knew that when he was in Linden, he was in Mayor Lumpkin's house. Here's some great moments and memories. He went toe-to-toe with drug dealers in his neighborhood, marching groups of 50 to 100 protesters around the houses. He bent city leaders' ears until they separated storm and sanitation sewers and stopped flooding area basements. He nearly single-handedly kept the proposed new Highway 670 from splitting Linden in half as originally planned. He was a warrior for Linden, a great, great neighborhood leader and advocate, and he was tough. I learned at an early age as a young school board member what it was like to be on the opposite side of an issue from Clarence Lumpkin. It could be a little uncomfortable. Those piercing blue eyes and passionate advocacy, and he always did his homework. You were never going to skate by with a flippant generic response when Clarence Lumpkin was in the room. To share some more about his late father, his story, please welcome Doug Lumpkin as we induct his father into the Columbus Hall of Fame.
You know, as I listened to both Judge Reese and Megan, who her and I go way back, actually, a number of years, I could just repeat everything that they said about Mr. Brooks, about Ms. Fergus. I could just repeat all of those things. But I'm going to give you a little insight, I think, on some things that you may not have known about Dad. And for the family, I'm going to start with a cue so that we can kick this off in the way that Dad would appreciate. So on the count of 3, we're going to do Wake Up, Lumpkin family, on the count of 3. Okay? 1, 2, 3. Wake up, everybody, time's a wasting. That was the saying that Dad had before the days of iPhones, when there were just regular phones. And everybody that sang that got that early morning call where he sang that jingle. And even today, that jingle has now been replaced by FaceTime. And now there are family members that will FaceTime you at the crack of dawn with that saying. So for Dad, Clarence Lumpkin, man of God, family man, man of service, and he was also a man of many sayings. You heard Mayor Ginther kind of refer to it. Dad actually had great oratory skills. He could go. You get in a meeting with him, he could go. And as mentioned, he could outline his position very clearly and very well. And so, with that, he shared a number of those sayings. I mentioned to you that Dad was a man of God. He used to say all the time, show me a man who says he has faith and no works, and I will show you my works. I will show you my faith by my works. He used to have a favorite poem that he taught me. I won't go through the whole poem. But one of the lines in the poem was, a winner makes commitments, a loser makes promises. Dad was committed. He was committed to the Linden community, and every elected official now and then knows of that commitment. It was unwavering, it was unselfish, it was always true. True to helping others, because he actually believed that service to others actually strengthened his community. And whether it was at city council or whether it was at the school board in them early days, he had that commitment to others. You know, Dad was big on character. He talked a lot about character, and he talked a lot about principles. And in that, he taught us to lead a life that was about character and was about principle. If you knew Dad, you knew there was one thing that he was always, and that was genuine. He was genuine in his conversations with you. He left no doubt to where he was coming from and why he was coming from that perspective. He was genuine in his love of family. He talked about family relentlessly. He made it clear to us. And he made it clear to us about the importance of family and used to say to us all the time, this is you, this is us, this is family. Many of you may not know. You wonder where that compassion comes from. I mentioned his oratory skills. That becomes more amazing when you know that Dad left school at 12 because he had to go take care of his mother. And then she died when he was 13. And you wonder where that leads him. That leads him to service on the Children's Services Board for a number of years. Many people don't know that. What did that service do? That service led him to an 8-year-old mentee by the name of Jamel Hester, who is now 32. He is with our family still today. He is our cousin. He is my nephew. He started with our family when he was 8. He will complete law enforcement training this October at 32. You wonder where he gets that kind of passion from. It mentioned that he was from Nashville, Georgia. I actually have been to Nashville, Georgia with Dad. He was in Nashville, Georgia for 2 reasons. In the New World, Dad didn't have a birth certificate. Midwife. We had to go to Nashville. He had a desire to go find his mother's grave. We did that in Nashville in 1967, he and I. And we walked into the courthouse. And in that courthouse was an old sign that said whites only. And Dad had a conversation with me about what that meant. But it wasn't maybe what you think. It was a conversation that really said, that I carry to this day, that talked about all types of people, but the ability to judge each person as an individual, and again, to work for others, because by doing those 2 things, you will in turn be a better person. It will in turn be a better community. And the only thing I can say is I stand here ridiculously proud to be his son because he was a great man. And it took me many years to understand how great he was. There are so many accomplishments that I didn't even begin to mention, that the mayor mentioned a few. Yesterday to this day, my sisters and I spent the day reorganizing his awards because they have a meaning to us as a family for what he accomplished. So I am deeply honored, and I'm going to ask my sisters to join me, Mayor, in the picture and accept the award.
next inductee, I met for the first time as a 7th grader at Dominion Middle School. Richard C. Pfeiffer Jr. then was a state senator who represented our little neck of the woods in Clintonville. I think he told me early on he also went to Dominion. We weren't in the same class. The junior high school, not middle school. But an incredible, incredible leader. Just a couple of amazing achievements, because we have some other very special guests who are going to talk some more about Rick's impact on Columbus. While serving in the United States Army during the Vietnam era, he received the Army Commendation Medal and 2 Bronze Stars. He was elected to the Ohio Senate, where he served for 9 years until he was elected in 1991 as the first judge of the Environmental Division of the Franklin County Municipal Court. He was re-elected city attorney 3 times, 2005, 2009, and 2013. And as somebody who talks about neighborhoods being our top priority in Columbus, I learned a lot about our neighborhoods by taking some moseys with City Attorney Rick Pfeiffer. But to help me celebrate as we induct the newest member of the Columbus Hall of Fame, please welcome our great City Attorney, Zach Klein.
He's always full of energy. He's always full of energy. How y'all doing? It's really great to be here. And the mayor touched upon some of the highlights for a wonderful person that I consider a friend, but also a mentor. This is a gentleman that cares deeply about Columbus, and he still does, even though he has now moved to Charlotte, checking in with me and others about the pulse of Columbus. But I think the beauty of Rick Pfeiffer, Richard C. Pfeiffer, with 3 Fs, if you know Rick, with 3 Fs, career is that his vision has always been intertwined with people and community. When he served in the state Senate, seeing a need to create the environmental court because of people taking advantage through housing stock of their neighbors to create the environmental court, but only brilliant than that, so he creates it, and then he runs for judge to be the first judge on the court. And then legendary stories of how he wouldn't sit up on the dais. He'd roll up his sleeves and bring the defendant down and sit next to him or her to talk about the problems and how they can abate the nuisance, they can fix the property and clean up the neighborhood. And of course, legend goes that he sentenced one of his property owners to live in his dilapidated house as punishment. That if you're going to live in that type of house or own it and rent it, then you need to live in it. And then, of course, becoming the city attorney, where he created the zone initiative, where now lawyers are assigned to each police zone, and they go out and they do the work with the civic associations and the block watches and the area commissions. That was all Rick Pfeiffer's brainchild. And I think it's a testament to him and his vision and love for the city of Columbus and for how much he does care about neighborhoods, because he went directly to the individual level, the neighborhood level, each individual parcel, each individual family that lives there. And he loved Columbus so much and left an indelible mark for the city that we all love. And it's my honor to be the next city attorney following him, because he had tremendous footsteps to follow in. When I joined city council, he and Auditor Dorian would sit behind Megan and I and offer us commentary on how we could do our jobs better. But we appreciated it, because he is a legend in the community and someone that I truly call my friend and a mentor. And as a matter of fact, I get a lot of credit for being the city attorney, but the secret is 99% of my staff was Rick's staff. Because I told him earlier, like, why would I ruin a free lunch? He hired a great team and built a wonderful staff. And so I have the honor of working with the folks that Rick built in the city attorney's office. But I don't think I do a good enough job introducing Rick. So I thought maybe I'd call in a special guest to really do a more intimate introduction. So I want to bring in someone that I think is near and dear to Rick's heart, his daughter, Sonia Pfeiffer.
Did he try to get up again? My name is Sonia Pfeiffer. I am a civil rights and criminal defense attorney based in Charlotte, North Carolina, and I live between Charlotte and Toronto, Ontario. My dad was Rick Pfeiffer. When I was 7 or 8 years old, I had a t-shirt and it said, "My dad is Rick Pfeiffer. Vote for my dad." Because he was running for his first political race, I think it was county prosecutor, and I used to go around door to door and hand out literature with him. And so I promoted my dad when he began his political career, and I am pleased to be here to promote my dad to all of you tonight for the capstone of his career and being inducted into the Hall of Fame. And I know he wants to come up here and talk to all of you. And just a preview, he wants to talk to you about the Pfeiffers who came from Bavaria and arrived in Ohio, and how he now is the last of the Pfeiffers. Well, I'm going to tell you what, these guys also stole my script. So, but here's what I want to say. While you have relocated from Ohio, your presence here in Columbus endures. Mayor Ginther, I understand, and before you stole this line, I understand you met my dad when you were in grade 7, and he gave your class from Dominion a tour of the State House when he was the state senator. And I can imagine how memorable that was and how excited he was, because he had to have been in his element with this group of young kids who he could talk about serving as a state senator on behalf of the city of Columbus and inspire these young people to lead and to serve this great city. And I'm sure he also had a lot of questions for all of you. He was in city government because he believed it was important to make a meaningful difference in your community. He also believed that using his privilege as a lawyer was important, and to do so for good and to be creative. You talked about his work as an environmental judge and being a creative lawyer and sentencing landlords who had abandoned their properties to live in those properties. He focused on improving blighted neighborhoods in Columbus, and everyone knows the moseying of Rick Pfeiffer, but the truth is those moseys were learning about the people who lived in various communities in Columbus, Ohio, and he was acutely aware of the racial and socioeconomic disparities that impacted certain neighborhoods, and he cared about that and did his best to make a difference. My dad cared mostly about knowing this community and serving this community and being a force of good in this community. And the last thing I'm going to say, before we let you get up here and talk about Bavaria, my brother, my sister, and I do not now live in Columbus, Ohio. But we grew up here and we learned important things here from my father and from my mom. And shout out to my mom, because I think everyone in this room knows that behind every successful politician or civil servant, there's a long-suffering spouse. So from our parents, what we learned, most importantly, I think, is the value of service and the importance of community. And what we learned is that everyone is your community. And by everyone, I mean regardless of your color, of your religion, of the country in which you were born. And those are values that each of us have carried to other places in this country and other countries. And so when I said my dad's legacy endures here, even if you are not physically here, that's what I mean. Your legacy resides in Columbus, Ohio, but it doesn't end here. So, Dad, come talk Bavaria.
You know, if she stuck around, I was going to try to run her for office, but she didn't do that. My name is Rick Pfeiffer. I always tell Pfeiffer it's 3 Fs. Let me tell you a story. And I'm going to ask a lot of people to get involved in this. The Pfeiffers did come to Columbus in the first half of the 1800s. They came out of Bavaria, Germany. They settled in a German village. In the last 200 years, they've been lawyers, politicians. My one grandfather started Lutheran Social Services. My mom was on the state school board. She was the head of the home economics department at Columbus Schools. Anyway, my dad was born in 1917 in Grant Hospital. I was going to be born there, but the war was going on, so I was born in Fort Jackson, South Carolina in 1944. He's an East High School graduate, East High School graduate, 1935, Ohio State University graduate. Met Mom, who's from Pike County. There, they eloped right after Pearl Harbor. Then the war started. Mom brought my sister and myself back to Columbus to live on Woodland Avenue where my grandpa was. When Dad came back from Europe, he bought a house on Chatham Road in Clintonville. My formative years were Clintonville. From 1945 until I went away to college in 1962, my parents left there in 65. As a kid growing up, I delivered the Booster, for all you remember, newspapers. I delivered the last year of the Ohio State Journal, the first year of the Citizen Journal. After school, I'd get on the number 2 bus, go downtown to the Columbus Y. I was at Boy Scouts with East North Methodist Church, camp counselor at Camp Wilson. I did all that stuff. Then I went away to college, always interested in politics, active in student government, college government. For some reason, I liked politics. So when I graduated from college in 1966 from Oberlin, I came down to Ohio State to law school. This is 1966. Now, you had to take a test, and this is where I have to admit something. You had to get an 80 on the test to avoid the draft. Well, I got a 79. Now, I'm a first-year law student. I'm thinking, I ain't going to join the Army as a military guy. So I enlisted in the Army and went to college option OCS. So they sent me to Fort Leonard Wood for AIT, OCS, AIT and OCS Fort Sill, and they sent me to El Paso, Texas, Fort Bliss. Janet Pfeiffer, would you come up here a minute, please?
What are you running for?
Janet, get up here. You got to get up here because this is part of the script. My daughter stole it. Come on up here. So they send me to a second lieutenant, fills a major's position as study agent. What does a second lieutenant do? You make coffee, you sharpen pencils, and you volunteer to go to Vietnam. After I volunteered to go to Vietnam, this Janet Prescanis, who taught Las Cruces in Mexico school, came down. If they wanted Air Force officers, they went to White Sands. If they're looking for Army officers, they came to Bliss. So we almost got married before I went overseas, but we said, let's wait. I came back in September of '69. We got married in November, started law school all over again. Janet Pfeiffer starts with me. Now I go to law school, and I passed the bar in 1972. But no, in 1970, I read this dispatch story. Mike Curtin, would you come up here, please? Please come up here. Because, your life is about these people that make you who you are. And he's one of the guys that makes me who I am. He didn't tell too many lies about me, but so my wife and I worked for a Ralph Nader group in the summer of '70. She started teaching at Arlington a month before I had to go to law school. So I said, how do you help these Democrats get elected to the Ohio General Assembly? I had no mentor. I said, well, you get the phone book. Where's the headquarters? It was at Lincoln Levesque Tower. So I go up there, and they say, oh, you got to go see a guy named Bill Chavon in the minority leader's office. That was the Democrat minority office. Took me 3 times to see Bill because the first time I didn't have an appointment, and finally saw him. He said, I suppose you want paid. I just want to volunteer. So that's what she started. And so he sent me around petitions, wrote a speech for Jim Bauman. 2 years later, I passed the bar. I'm on the street. I see him again. Hey, what are you doing? We need a lawyer up in Marion for a recount. Oh, I can do that. So I go up there, come back. He's, by the way, the newly elected Democratic majority, the House, needs a lawyer. Are you interested? Am I interested? January 1971. You go to work on New Year's Day. So that's when I met a guy. I didn't know how to pronounce his name at first. It's R-I-F-F-E. Now, is that Riff? No, it's Rife. So went to work. Scott, would you come up here, please? So we went to work for Vern Rife. Scott was the House pilot. He was with me in there. And so we did that for 7 years, learning from Vern Rife how you run elections, how you listen to people, how you make decisions. Well, after after a while, I decided I really want to run for office. So I went in to see Vernon in 1979. I said, well, now, you have to quit when you file, which I came to learn was his way of saying, you don't want to do this, you want to stay in this office. I said, okay. So for 1 year, I had no job. And on election day, Bill Woods, would you come up here, please? This next guy, Judge Woods, I met him in 1978 when he was what we call a targeter for Dean Connolly, running for state rep. Bill Woods helped me, helped Peggy Bryant get elected. So 1980, we decided to run for prosecutor. Well, you know what? Bill will tell you, his candidates won on election day. But they have to count the absentee ballots. So I lost by 0.6%. Mike Miller got 50.3, and I got 49.7. So it was probably an office I wasn't qualified to have anyway. So I lost, and then I was out of a job for a while. But then the Senate seat came along in 1982. And I said, boy, I'm in that Senate district. So I decided to run for the Senate and did get elected. And in our first 2 years as a 17-16 Democrat majority, we raised their taxes, and we called it 90% increase. We voted for collective bargaining, and guess what happened in November of 1984? We went minority. There will never be another Democratic majority in that Ohio Senate as long as I live, because there hasn't been one since. Anyway, I decided that after a while in the minority, this guy named Mike Stinziano, not the Otter kid, his old man, had this bill to create the Environmental Court in general. And I'm sitting on Judiciary Committee with somebody and says, I think I'm going to run for that. And they said, don't tell anybody. So it passed. I ran for it and got elected. And that's what got me to the court. Now, Bill Hedrick, would you come up here? So I become a judge. I'm learning how to become a judge. And this guy, Bill Hedrick, Judge Hedrick, I'm sorry, I didn't give you your honor. He's at the court. And is that right? I didn't want to sit at the bench because this is municipal court people. These people aren't bad people, they just make mistakes. So you sit there and try to work with them. Bill would say, you can spit in his face and he won't put you in jail unless you committed graffiti in my neighborhood. And I was put in jail for 10 days. So we went along like that for a while. And then after a while, it became evident that maybe it was time for me to move on. And Janet Jackson, who I was going to leave, and I thought, city attorney might be a good job. So city council appointed me, then I got elected. And now I'm going to ask Jeff Furby, Wes Phillips, Steve Dunbar, Tim Mangan to come up here, but I forgot to earlier ask Don Spicer to come up here. Don, would you come up here? And Mark Rutgers, would you come up here? Don Spicer, now this, I forgot to tell you this because this was what was embarrassing. Running for prosecutor in 1980, he was my campaign manager. He was an 18-year-old Hilliard City Council member. And Don would buy cheeseburgers for my kids because I didn't have enough money. So Don Spicer helped me. But now, Josh Cox, would you come up here? Now, I'm going to tell you about, who? Is Laura here? Oh, I didn't recognize Laura. Oh, this woman always wanted to correct my English. Laura, oh my God, Laura, thank you very much. I know I'm taking a lot of time here, but people, I grew up in Columbus. I enjoyed it, but everybody you see here, every one of you, and Judge Sargas, would you come up here? I don't know how many people I hired that he recommended. But, Wes, you're one. Who else? You see these people up here? This is Columbus, Ohio. I mean, truly. Laura's got a big shot job, and Cox used to keep me straight. Mangan used to let me work with his cases until I settled everything. Furby, he's the guy that tries to keep the police straight. When they make a mistake, he feels sorry they didn't do something wrong. Mark Ruthkus was the guy who decided we should video our Moseys, which we did. Have I covered anybody? And Mangan, I mean Dunbar. I had this great idea about this own initiative, and it was all fussed up for a while. And I said, Dunbar, make this thing work. So Steve Dunbar, he's the guy that makes it work. But I just want to say thank you for coming. These are the people that made Columbus for me. You don't do anything in life without other folks. And one last thing, I can remember, I think at East 20th, do you folks live on East 20th? I sat in the living room of Willa and Clarence Lumpkin, at probably 19, hustling for votes. Now, I'm a white guy, right? And you know what white Democrats do? They go to the black community, hustle for black votes, right? What do you do then? Well, I had two advices to run for office. When somebody gives you a contribution, write a thank you note. And I'm appalled at people like giving money. They don't give thank you notes. And then Norman Collins said, if you go to a black church, stay the whole time. So I started. So there was Booth, Troy, and Ross. Jerome Ross became a good friend, and I went after the year. I was going all the time to the black churches. And a good thing I did, because my last year as a judge, a young woman who was a senior at Columbus School for Girls, Judge, would you come up here? Came in. This is Judge LePage. So she came in and was an intern with me. And then I went away for about 6 years. Oh, you stand there. Yes, stand. You just stand. Just stand there. Your Honor. So about 6 years after I met her, I was out at Christ Memorial Church, and this woman comes up to me. And this is the reason Judge Page is a judge. This woman comes up to me and says, I'm Judge LePage's mom. I said, did she keep her head screwed on straight? Those are my words. Did she keep her head screwed on straight? Yes, she did, and she's up at Ohio State going to law school. Oh, have her call me. We'll hire her as an intern. So she did, and she passed the bar, and she got elected, and she was part of the Zone Environmental team. She's up in the neighborhood council made her a city council member, and now she's in her second term as a judge. So all these people you see here, I either helped in some way. Now, as I said, Laura always liked to say my English could have been improved, but guys, thank you very much for what you have made me in Columbus. Thanks very much. I think that's long enough. Now, I got to tell you, I apologize to everybody so well dressed up. I did not have a coat today. And here's how Bill Henry is so good. This is Bill Henry's coat.
The one, the only. Janet, I should have known not to hand it to him, you know. We can get another one. We know somebody. Our last inductee this evening is someone literally who helped create and make Columbus who we are today because of his incredible leadership and service. There are literally thousands of his legacy all over our city today. Dr. Wilburn H. Weddington, Sr., for his generous spirit and outstanding medical care. Here's some things you should know about Dr. Weddington. Dr. Weddington became the first African-American physician to achieve the rank of full professor at the Ohio State Medical School and later took on the role of associate dean. He was elected as the first African-American president of the Ohio Academy of Family Physicians in 1984, Ann. Dr. Weddington made the ultimate sacrifice of never, ever turning away anyone who could not pay their medical bills. As a result, he made our community healthier, stronger, safer. He believed medicine was his calling, and as a doctor, it was to care for those less fortunate. I'm not sure any other OB has delivered as many babies in the city of Columbus as Dr. Weddington. And since we continue to grow as a city, we thank God for him and his service. I'm so honored to introduce his son to talk a little bit about Dr. Weddington and his service to our city. Please welcome Carlton Weddington.
Good evening. So I'm not going to take up a lot of your time because, Mr. Pfeiffer, you did a hell of a job, but it's hard to come after something like that. To Mayor Ginther, invited guests, and honorees, their families, it is an honor to stand here before you to honor my father, Dr. Wilburn H. Weddington. Now, there's 3 Wilburns. He is Wilburn H. Weddington Sr. My brother who passed away is Wilburn H. Weddington Jr., and I'm Wilburn Carlton Weddington. So a lot of folks thought I was the 3rd, but I am my own unique name, named after my mother, Carlene. And my sister would know this well. When we talk about the life of Dr. Wilburn H. Weddington, many call Doc Weddington Doc. We affectionately call him Daddy, is a song that whenever he was home, back home in Hiram, Georgia, they would sing. And if there was the unfortunate case of someone passing, they would always sing that song because it says a lot about his upbringing and from whence he came. That song is, "We've come this far by faith." And so, Doug, as you talked about your father coming from the South, Nashville, my father too is from the South, Hiram, Georgia, 234 miles north, right? Born September 21st, 1924, same year as your father. And there's something to say about being a black man or growing up in the deep South, Georgia, and all the things that they had to come through to get to this point, to now be inducted in the Columbus Hall of Fame. He graduated high school, one-room classroom, at the early age. I think he was no more than 14, 15 years old. He wanted to go to medical school because the man who used to come to take care of his grandmother was a white physician. His grandmother was a sharecropper. He would allow my father to carry his bag up to the house. And that little thing, you would never think, but that one little thing encouraged him that one day, though he was the son, the oldest of 2, father nor mother had completed elementary school, but that one day he could become a physician just by carrying that man's bag. As the mayor mentioned, he never turned away a person in need. In fact, my father was one of the first, and I don't know that anybody has duplicated it, but he used to go to the communities in which they lived with his motorhome. So the motorhome that we had back in the day that we used to take trips on, he converted to an office, a mobile office. And people, doctors would say, "Oh, you can't do that. Nobody's going to do that. You're not going to make any money." It didn't matter to him because he was about serving the community. So my father was a passionate man. He loved his family. One thing that a lot of folks don't know is that he liked to cook as well. His favorite thing was barbecue. And before I was born, they lived on Franklin Park South and had the first pool in the neighborhood. Right. And then we moved, when I was born, we moved out to Sunbury Road, and we had a pool out there. But without this, there would be no pool. He built his own barbecue pit, and every Saturday he would invite over friends and family and cook barbecue. So that was my father. His shoes are hard to fill. But I will tell you this, as we just talked about, I literally have on his shoes today. And they're clean. They're clean. And though they're a little big for me, it is a pleasure to stand before you to accept this honor. And I'd like to welcome up my sister and thank you, Columbus community, the mayor, and everyone here on behalf of my father, Dr. Wilburn H. Weddington. Thank you.
We have a very special guest, the Assistant Minority Leader of the Ohio House of Representatives, who has a special recognition for the Weddington family. Please welcome Dontavius Gerald.
Well, good evening, family. How y'all doing today? Good evening, family. How y'all doing today? First and foremost, thank you to the mayor, to the team, to all the honorees. Rick, it's good to see you. You broke that, right? We won't get you none. We'll get you none. On behalf of the Ohio House of Representatives, it is a dear honor of mine to bestow this commendation on behalf of the family to commemorate the life, the service, and truly the legacy of Dr. Wilburn Harold Weddington Sr. It says that oftentimes when people transition on, they're never really gone because they live in the footprints of each and every one of us. And I would argue that Dr. Weddington's legacy lives in every baby that he's birthed. And a piece of him is a part of the tapestry that makes Columbus great. And I'm just honored and privileged to know the family. I know my dear brother Weddington very well. In fact, I succeeded him in a portion of the district I now represent. And I remember my first time coming to Columbus, and he was the first one that took me out to lunch. And it was interesting, his service, even in that short stint of time of us connecting, changed the trajectory of how I viewed public leaders and how it is so important that you don't exist in the towers, but you meet people directly where they are. And I would argue that I would say that you learned that from your father, because he came from the towers, could have done everything as an associate dean and done some amazing work, but he stepped into the community each and every day to save lives, and all of us are thankful for it. And so on behalf of the Ohio House of Representatives, it's an honor to bestow this commendation to you and your family for the honor and the life and the legacy of Dr. Wilburn Harold Weddington Sr. Thank you so much.
Wow. What a class. What a class. Remarkable, remarkable neighbors who have helped shape who we are and what we're going to become, because their legacies live on and so much more to give. We're grateful for this incredible group of neighbors. So glad so many of you joined us here tonight to celebrate them. I want to wish everybody a great evening. And for one final time, could we ask our newest inductees to stand so they could be recognized by all of us? Did anybody bring duct tape for Rick's award? I'm going to ask all the inductees and representatives and folks who introduced to join us up front for a photo before we break for the evening. Thank you all for being here tonight, and congratulations.